would you tell everyone who has a Fitbit or an Apple Watch to get rid of it?
Absolutely. I don't have them, but if you value your privacy and your thoughts, then I would not wear them.
How does your Apple Watch affect your thoughts? How do those dots connected?
Well, a lot of this came out at the 5G level, but once we go to the 6G level, it will be more intuitive than it already is. Right now, we'll say something and it'll pop up. It's obviously listening to what we're discussing. Well, this will be at a much higher level. It'll know what we're thinking.
Welcome to Going Rogue with Lara Logan. My guest this week is Brandy Smith, who is a computer interfaces expert and an information security expert. So what does all of that mean? Well, Brandy Smith is working on something that affects all of us, which is brain-computer interface. And if that sounds like the work of science fiction, well, that's because in some ways it is. But it is something that is very real, that is here. What are we really talking about? Well, imagine, drone operators, right? You can sit at Nellis Air Force Base in Nevada, where I have been, and actually covered those operations when I was a correspondent at 60 Minutes. And you can kill people, thousands of miles away on the other side of the world just by using a computer. Well, in the future, right, what are we talking about with brain-computer interface? Potentially, you can operate a drone with your mind. We're talking about neurological warfare, really. And this is something that is highly unregulated at present. So Brandy is an expert in this field. She is fighting on behalf of all of us and has a lot to say about it. Brandy, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So can you explain in simple terms, I guess, for people out there who are not familiar with it, what do we mean when we say brain-computer interface?
Brain-computer interface are basically wearable devices, like your Oculus. You can wear a watch, and they will be able to read our thoughts, as well as send thoughts into our brain. It's a two-way street.
So in a way, they can already send thoughts into our brain, right? I mean, isn't that what AI does? Isn't that what social media does? Advertising?
Well, this would actually be via brain signals.
What do you mean?
In our central nervous system.
How does that work?
Brain-computer interfaces, human-machine interfaces, because our bodies and our brains are electrical, we're energy. So it's able to, the brain-computer interfaces and the wearable devices are able to interact with our minds and pull our thoughts out of our brains and put them into a computer.
How does it do that?
The signals.
That what, like electromagnetic signals?
The frequencies, electromagnetic signals and frequencies, yes.
So, I mean, right now, does that technology already exist?
Yes, it does.
But it's not commercially available, or in part?
For gaming devices, it is.
So can you explain what that looks like?
Well, there's several videos on YouTube, but you can essentially put on like an Oculus and you can play a video game and it can read your thoughts. You don't have to speak to it. It's reading your mind and it's telling, like, for example, there's a video of a young lady, she's playing a game and she's casting a spell. So the device is reading her thoughts and putting it into the spell or into the game, and she never speaks a word.
So, but how do you know that video is real? There's so much of this stuff these days, right?
Right. Well, this is all validated. It's been done under medical, like Neuralink. They can do this with the implants to correct Parkinson's, and they show how this is being done from a medical viewpoint. That's needed because those people have spinal cord damage, brain damage in some ways. Mm-hmm. So with the wearable devices, for the people who do not have damage, it's able to be on the same frequency as our thought processes. via the electromagnetic frequencies.
So are we talking about, is this EEG or is this fMRI, which I know are two different technologies, right? I mean, one
This
is,
is
yeah.
essentially operating off of an EEG, but the EEG is not needed.
What do you mean?
This can be done just by wearing a set of glasses, any kind of wearable device without the EEG.
Can you explain what EEG is?
EEG is like a cap you put on your head, and it connects to the different electromagnetic frequencies within our brains, the brain waves.
Kind of like having sensors all over your head or your body, right?
Correct.
And then with Neuralink, the difference is that instead of having the sensor attached to you, like put on your skull or your body, they implant it into your cerebral cortex, right?
Correct.
Okay, that's what Elon Musk is working on.
Yes.
And do we really know how advanced that is at this point? We all have a lot of choices for cell phone service, and it feels like there are new ones that are popping up all the time. But for me, there's only one company that stands in the gap for every American that believes freedom is worth fighting for. And that company is Patriot Mobile. The good news is you can switch to Patriot Mobile today without sacrificing quality or service. And if you're worried about coverage, don't be. Patriot Mobile uses all three major US networks. So if you have service in this country today, you'll have as good or better coverage with Patriot Mobile. And if you think switching is a hassle, it's not. You can keep your number, keep your phone, or upgrade if you want. Patriot Mobile has a team that is based in the US, will get you activated in minutes from the comfort of your own home. And if you're stuck in a contract or you owe money on your phones, don't worry. Patriot Mobile now has a contract buyout program. This is how we win, by aligning our spending with our values. Every dollar we spend matters. So go to patriotmobile.com/Lara or call 972-PATRIOT and use promo code Lara, that's LARA, just to get a free month of service. Switch today. That's patriotmobile.com/Lara or call 972-PATRIOT.
It's highly advanced. It's very popular in other nations outside of the United States. They've been doing extensive studies on this for years. So we just don't hear much about it in the United States. Apple is coming out with some devices that are wearables, and they require something a little bit different, but this technology is coming out with the 6G, where our phones will be able to interact with our frequencies within our brain.
Okay. So, some people that I talk to say, well, they can read electromagnetic signals, things can make you have thoughts, but no one can really read your mind because the brain is super complex. And sure, you can have a camera in front of you that's reading your facial expressions, but they're not yet at a point where they can actually read your thoughts. What do you say to that?
That is not true. We're all energy, so this is interacting with our bodies and our central nervous system from a natural standpoint.
And can you explain that a little bit more in detail?
So the frequencies are set to interact with our brains to the exact positions where our thought processes come from. So that leads us to believe that if our thoughts can be read, then they should be able to send thoughts back into our brains, which is really scary.
If our thoughts can be read, why is there so much pushback from sort of, some of the scientific community and intelligence community and that, where they say that, no, that's nonsense. That's not where we are yet.
Well, this I don't quite understand, because we are writing the frameworks and standards from the International Electrotechnical Commission for the ISO and the IEC. And these standards are pushed out through every publicly traded organization throughout the world.
So what is the ISO and the IEC?
The International Standards Organization, and the IEC is the International Electrotechnical Commission.
And what do they do?
They write the standards and the frameworks and the standards for basically all of our policies that are implemented.
For technology?
For technology, yes. Now, this actually carries over to Insights, and Insights is the American organization that gets us to the international stage. And these are published via the American National Standards Institute.
You know, these are organizations that the average person just has no idea that they even exist.
You are very correct. I have been working in government's risk and compliance and technology for many years, and I've always had to implement from an organizational standpoint these standards and frameworks. And I've always wondered who writes these. Now I know. So it's always been a mystery. But I was approached last March by Quantum Resistant Cryptography and asked to chair the Brain Computer Interface Committee. And then I got to see how this world works.
I mean, that's amazing. Okay, so tell us a little bit about yourself, just so people can understand. You know, when I say that you're sort of an information security expert and system security expert and computer interfaces expert, what is your experience?
I have been studying this since I was a child. I actually went into accounting, and I was a forensic accounting auditor for many years, and then I switched back in 2009. Over to information system security. I saw a great need for it. And there are many people that claim to be experts, and they're not truly experts. Whenever you get to this level, you are an actual expert. This takes many hours of studying. You have to stay on top of everything. So I'm constantly reading because it changes constantly. So most of the people come from academia, so they study it and they teach it. And then, like, let's say Google, Microsoft, all your major corporations assign their top engineers to these committees. They go out and work on the international stage to implement the policies because they're all experts at the technology that they're working on standardizing.
Wow. So, okay, that's so interesting that these companies that make all the money out of this technology have such a strong say in what the policies are, right? I mean,
correct.
That sounds like, that you're policing yourself, which is the worst kind of idea. Is that right? Why are so many young people struggling to have babies today? Birth rates in the US are at record lows, and that's partly because testosterone levels are dropping all the time. According to some studies, T levels are roughly half of what they were 50 years ago. And if we don't reverse this trend, we could be looking at population collapse. And it's why we partnered with Chalk. They're a Patriot-owned supplement company, and their mission is to save mankind from extinction. They have something called the Male Vitality Stack, and it's been shown in clinical trials to boost your free testosterone by 87% in just 21 days. That is not just a statistic. You will feel it. And ladies, you'll be pleased to know it's not just for men. The Female Vitality Stack addresses just about every complaint a woman can have: stress, mood, hormones, energy, and focus. And it'll even help you keep up with your man. So go to chalk.com and use code LARA for 17.76% off your subscription. Cancel anytime. Or you can also call 50-CHOQ-3000 and tell them Lara sent you.
You would be correct, yes. We typically have a group. We all meet as a committee, so we all have to vote from a national viewpoint for each nation that's participating in these committees. And then it has to go to international levels. So we all operate off of Robert's Rules of Order. So everything has to be voted on, and everyone has to agree on the frameworks and standards that are going into place. But the larger corporations have the money because you cannot join this without paying a large fee. Because Insights is a fully funded, self-funded operation. They don't require any kind of government funding. So like Google, your Microsoft, they assign their top engineers and their experts to these committees on a volunteer basis, but they pay their salaries.
But what is Insights?
Insights is the International Committee for Technical Standards.
Okay, the International Committee for... What kind of power do they have? I mean, does anyone have to listen to them?
Yes, if you're a publicly traded organization, you have to adhere to these standards.
Standards
to the
of
bare
what?
minimum. Like there's, okay, for instance, brain computer interfaces is JTC1, which is the Joint Technical Committee 1. And then each, like cybersecurity and privacy is ST27. So brain computer interfaces is ST43. Each nation that wants to write these standards and policies presents what the project they want to implement to the international stage, and it gets accepted within the ISO or the IEC via JTC1, or JTC3 is out now because JTC3 is quantum. So they put out a call to all the organizations that participate via the executive board, which they sit at the level of ANSI and Insights. And ANSI is the American National Standards Institute, is the parent organization to Insights. So each one of these corporations gets to see what's being standardized, and then they decide which experts in that field they need to send out to work internationally with the other experts to get these standards written and in place.
It's like a whole club of people that just exists, that's making decisions for all of us that we don't even know about.
Correct.
And then the people, I mean, you know, big pharma gets attacked all the time, right? But what about big tech? I mean, it's like having the pharmaceutical industry have meetings and standard boards and all the rest of it, and having, you know, Pfizer and Moderna decide what are the standards for the whole world for treatment and drugs and everything.
And no one really knows how to get there, and you have to have the funding to get there. If you don't have the funding and support to get there, you don't get a voice.
So how much does it cost to get there?
Anywhere between $1,500 and $2,500, depending upon the size of the organization, and then $300 per expert that gets assigned to the committee. That's to get us to the international level. And Insights keeps us legal across the board internationally.
Now, and you, how did you get on there?
I got on there via quantum resistant cryptography. They reached out to me back in February of last year, the CEO, and alerted me to the fact that brain computer interfaces ST43 was about to lose, or the United States basically was about to lose our voice internationally in writing these standards.
Why?
If
Because who was taking over?
China presented this to the international stage back in 2022. So they chaired the brain computer interfaces internationally. So we did have someone assigned, and the way these committees are set up, if we go longer than 6 months without a chair to chair the committee, and if we do not have more than 4 organizations on the committee, we lose our voice internationally. So we were just about to go to that 6-month mark, and I came in the nick of time to catch it.
So the U.S. government, does the government participate in these committees, or is it all private companies?
Under OMB A119, each pertinent agency, government agency, is supposed to participate in these committees. Currently, I have no government support at all. NIST was involved in this, and they pulled out.
Who missed?
NIST, the National Institute of Standards and Technology.
National Institute of Standards, NIST. You know, I feel very dumb when I'm talking to you, Brandy, because you're so smart and I know so little about this, but I feel like I can really speak on behalf of so many people in this country, because these things are coming at us at lightning speed, and we think that we're represented, but we're not. That's what I'm finding out. We're not represented.
No, for brain computer interfaces is the end all of everything, because it's going to go over to quantum, which is JTC3. This will interact with us naturally. So if we have any kind of, like, let's say Alexa, any kind of our devices and our phones, they'll be able to intuitively interact with us.
And what if you don't want this? Can you opt out?
That's a tough one. Currently, we have no protections around this. So I've been doing the research on it. And so far, I cannot find any protections other than the encryption software that will get us through the hybrid state. Now, this is future, but as you know, technology changes continuously. Every day, something new comes out.
But you can't encrypt your brain.
No, you can't encrypt your brain.
So if there's technology out there that can, invasive technology. How do you protect your brain from that?
That is a tough one because a Faraday cage will not do that. We currently have no protections from this. I was the first person to introduce internationally privacy, ethics, and security into brain-computer interfaces. It didn't exist until last year.
Okay, and so when you talk about these committees, I mean, you talk about China chairing that committee. I mean, that's really the CCP, because in China, this distinction between companies and the Chinese Communist Party doesn't exist the way it does in the United States. And so private corporations in the US really represent private interests, but, companies represent the CCP in China. So the Chinese government is heavily involved, but the US government, from what you're saying in your experience, they're missing in action, right? They're MIA.
Oh, absolutely. This is actually what I know. I've been to every pertinent agency with the United States government to try to get support for this. They will not join. I have been turned away.
Which agencies have you been to?
I've been to DARPA.
Yeah.
I've been to NSA. And obviously NIST was there, and then they decided they didn't have the experts anymore for this. So I've literally stayed up. We go into these meetings called plenaries, where each nation comes together for these week-long events, and we vote on what we've worked on throughout the year.
Yep.
As far as the standards and the frameworks go. And so far, only one plenary, I've had 2 people with me. Other than that, I've had to stay up all night long by myself because we operate in UTC time. And usually, let's see, the first one I chaired was in China. So they're 12 hours ahead of us. The last one was in South Korea. So the last one was for South Korea. I sat alone with no backup, voting and speaking on behalf of the United States.
That's nuts.
It is very. I've looked around and I'm like, this cannot be happening, and it is happening. If I weren't there, the United States would have no voice.
Wow. So if you had a wish list, right? If you could conjure up the right person in the U.S. government to be standing in front of you to address this with, who would it be today?
Oh, I have no idea. We've been trying to reach out to basically the Oval Office. So hopefully we'll get there eventually.
Yeah, but I wouldn't even know who to go to in the Oval Office, right?
And I'm sorry?
Who would you even go to in the Oval Office?
Last year, we reached out to Harry Coker's office, and we were told that there's no help available.
And when was that last year?
I'm going to say last September.
So that was before the change in the administration. Now Harry's no longer there, right?
I do not believe so.
Okay. And so the question is, who is there now?
That I don't know.
And who are the countries that are involved and represented? How many?
We have 17 right now, I believe. UK, Australia, Japan, China, South Korea. Poland is starting to get involved. Currently, right now, it's mainly myself representing the United States, Japan. China has, like as you said, their whole government behind them. South Korea, the same. The UK has a very large presence also. So does Australia.
Interesting. What do these countries gain by having a large presence in these bodies?
They get to make the frameworks and the policies to be implemented globally.
Wow. But who's in charge of implementation? I mean, how do you control that?
That is based on, that's why I said every publicly traded organization has to implement these standards. Like the ISO and the IEC are the Bible of the policy and standards for organizations.
And what can happen to them? How do you implement that? Right? Like, what are the consequences? Like, what if they don't implement those standards? How is it enforceable?
That is enforceable at the auditing level. So let's see, like the SEC, there's various organizations that whenever they go through an audit, they have to adhere to certain standards or meet certain criteria and go above that as far as security goes and the frameworks to make sure that everyone's on the same page. Now, as far as security goes, they should be going way above.
And so what does the future look like for brain-computer interface as you see it?
We're not doing very well right now. I'm doing the best I can, but obviously I'm one person. I have a very small team of people behind me. But as far as the United States National Body Committee goes for brain-computer interfaces, it's myself and two other organizations.
Which are?
Which are Cognixon and FutureWay. And FutureWay is owned by Huawei.
Oh, boy. What could possibly go wrong? And, okay, so what are people actually working towards? I know some of this sounds like the stuff of science fiction. We touched a little bit on EEG and fMRI. We didn't explain what fMRI is. Maybe you could explain that. Those are the sort of the two forms of technology, right, that are used to try to read your mind.
Right. Well, it goes in and it'll show on the screen what regions of the brain are being activated. That's how it lights up. So that's how it shows.
Almost like an MRI in real time.
Correct.
And so it can track and monitor the impact of stimulation within the brain, right? So you can show someone, I don't know, a scary picture, or you can show them a math problem, because math problems are scary to some people. Or you can show them something to trigger a significant response in the brain and then map that, right?
Exactly. That's how we know whether or not the thoughts are being read correctly or not. That's how we train the models for BCI.
Can you hide your thoughts from this technology?
Currently, no.
Wow. Okay, so what are the applications for this technology, especially in terms of, cognitive warfare and neurological warfare and so on?
The implications?
Yeah. Like where does it lead? What is that? You have a picture in your brain. You deal with this technology all the time. You understand what these interfaces mean. For people who have no concept of it, like me, before I started working on this, can you paint a picture of what that could potentially look like?
This leaves us all open to being controlled, and we lose our free will without protections in place.
And what are the applications? Like, I'm thinking, for example, there's if you look at the movie industry, right? Movie and television programs, they show a future where you can wear a mobile suit that's a robotic suit that when you strap into the suit, it straps into your brain and reads your mind, and you can control that machine through the human brain.
We do have that technology currently. That's not just in movies. I think all of this generates from real life, what we see in the movies, to mentally prepare us for what's coming out.
So it's not that the technology is in the future. The technology is already here. We're being prepared
Correct.
for it being rolled out, right?
Correct.
So what is the kind of technology that already exists?
These would be our wearable devices, and they would mainly exist in the military realm or the gaming realm, because we have a lot of gamers that want to use this, that think it's great and don't really understand the ramifications of using it.
On a small scale, is that like your Fitbit that you wear, or your Apple Watch, something like that when you say wearable?
Basically, yes. Or the, I don't know if you've seen the Ray-Ban, the glasses, the smart glasses, the Oculus.
Yes. I hate all that stuff.
Devices.
I mean, me personally, I don't want anything to do with it, but I'm 54 years old. I'm from a different generation, and everybody's different, right? There are people
right.
Who just, who want different experiences for different reasons. I mean, I wouldn't wear a Fitbit if you put a gun to my head, but because I know that it's creating a biological, neurological map of my body. Is that right?
Correct.
And that
I don't
data
wear
can
them
be
either.
sold.
Right. I was given the Ray-Ban glasses, the smart glasses, as a gift. And I smiled and I politely returned them. I said, "Do you realize what I do?" I'm like, "I'm sorry. Thank you very much, but I can't. I won't wear these."
Because
I don't know what it's doing. I don't want anything that close to my brain, because it's basically it's a little microphone that sits like within the glass, and it can see everything that you do and hear everything that you do. I don't know what else it's doing. I don't know what all technology is involved in it, but I don't trust it.
But you said a microphone that can see what you're doing?
It's the camera's built into the lens of the glass.
I
the
see.
glass
Interesting.
and the microphone.
So
So
do
you
we
could say, "Hey Google," if you're looking at something, it'll see what you're looking at, and it'll basically show you everything within inside the glass, the lens.
Amazing. How do you even know if what it's showing you is what is actually in front of you?
What? It just gives you the information. If you want to know something currently, it'll just show you what exactly that is. If you ask it, "What am I looking at?" It'll tell you whatever's available online.
Right. I know. It's just like you could be looking at a mountain and say, "What mountain am I looking at?" And how do you know if what it tells you is true? It could say this
Well,
is,
you don't.
you
Right.
don't, right? I mean, especially if you don't have any residual institutional kind of, context and knowledge to judge the veracity of the answer. This is what worries me.
Right. That's what I'm trying to say. We did come out with the first set of standards. Keep in mind, the United States really didn't have much of a say-so in those. They came out this past March. And those were written from 2022 to 2023, I believe. And some of this is being done from the cybersecurity and privacy standpoint, which is SC27. So they put in what they could so far for protections, but it's not in depth.
And what are the kind of things that are in these standards?
It basically, verbiage is very important. It takes a while for us to review how the person that's going to be implementing these standards is to interpret them. So it'll be sentences. It's basically guidelines as to what you need to do to make sure that the frameworks are being implemented correctly within the organization.
Are they publicly available? Like, can people read them and access them?
Yes. NIST sometimes pulls from the ISO and the IEC. So each organization has to have these standards, and they usually hire policy experts or have a policy expert or a group, which is governance, risk, and compliance, that know these standards and know how to implement them.
Where do people find them?
On the ISO and the IEC website.
What does ISO stand for again?
International Standards Organization.
So International Standards Organizations, and then the other one is?
The International Electrotechnical Commission.
International Electrotechnical Commission. Okay, so when you talk about, as applied to warfare, what are some of the applications for this technology?
Well, I'm not involved in the DoD, so I really don't know what's available, but I'm pretty sure that they have the suits and the wearable devices already to assist them.
Would you tell everyone who has a Fitbit or an Apple Watch to get rid of it?
Absolutely. I don't have them. That's just me personally. But if you value your privacy and your thoughts, then I would not wear them.
And what do you mean your thoughts? Because how does your Apple Watch affect your thoughts? How are those dots connected?
Well, a lot of this came out at the 5G level, but once we go to the 6G level, it will be more intuitive than it already is. If you notice, like with advertisements and such, right now, we'll say something and it'll pop up on our phones or on our Apple Watch, and it'll tell us, it's obviously listening to what we're discussing. Well, this will be at a much higher level. It'll know what we're thinking.
Because
so that
that's
we won't have to speak it.
That's kind of superficial, right? I mean, when in terms of advertising and that kind of thing, that's sort of, it's superficial, and it's based on sort of basic low bandwidth inputs. But when you go to 6G, are you not talking about a much higher bandwidth, right? And I mean, with computer brain interface, like what I mean by low bandwidth, I mean that it's only, it it's according to the speed of what our voice, how our thumb speed, how fast you type, how fast you read, how fast you can listen, those kind of the physical rate of those inputs versus a much higher bandwidth is the speed with which we think.
The 6G is more aligned to our thoughts and our natural state of brain signals and communicating with us without us having to type or speak.
And who's the most advanced at this in the world?
That's really tough to say. China is very, very advanced at this from what I've seen.
More advanced than Neuralink and Elon Musk or DARPA?
Oh, absolutely.
In the U.S. military?
Absolutely. DARPA, I'm not sure. Finding out what DARPA has is very tough.
By design.
So that's a toss-up between DARPA and China. I'm not quite sure which. But Neuralink, they're a little bit more towards the medical devices and the implants. We're not standardizing any of the implants. That's TC62. We're doing the wearables, the non-invasive. But China is trying to implement the invasive. And I've pushed back and said, we're not doing invasive, we're doing non-invasive. Because invasive sits with TC62, which is medical.
But why would China listen to you? Don't they just do whatever they want? They could say whatever they want in your committees and agree to standards, and then they just do whatever they like.
Absolutely. But as far as that goes, if I hear it and I know that it doesn't belong there, I'm going to get pushback. So
sure, because you're going to make sure it's not in the standards, which is still significant.
Yes.
Yeah, but you can't stop China doing whatever it wants, right? Or can they be stopped?
No, they can't be stopped. The only thing we can do, or myself and anyone else that gets involved in the committee, is to make sure that we have the protections in place.
Yes. And how does that impact the individual? I mean, like if what can the individual really do?
At this point, we have no protections in place.
Would it help us to have a digital bill of rights?
Absolutely.
And what would you want that to say?
We've been working on this on the side. Basically, there should be no rights to the technology reading our thoughts. That takes away our free will. So it needs to respect our privacy. And the UK is requesting complete surveillance of their citizens using the brain-computer interface technology. There was a lot of pushback on this because a lot of countries are not going to go along with that.
Which countries object to that and which countries agree?
Japan and the United States and Australia gave pushback.
What on earth is going on in the United Kingdom? Why are they so censorship and surveillance crazy?
That I can't tell you. All I know is what's discussed, and that's what their intentions are for their citizens.
Wow, that's a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
And you're seeing signs of it already, with what they're doing with social media and censorship.
Yes.
It's very interesting, especially when you look at the UK historically, because they have their fingers in a lot of pies.
They do.
So, well, who would you regard right now as the greatest threat to our personal, individual, liberty and freedom and privacy? I mean, which countries pose the greatest threat?
That I don't want to speak on because we're all working together collaboratively to try to put these standards and frameworks in place. And all I can speak is on behalf of the United States that we're doing the best we can to implement the most secure and ethical frameworks and standards.
Yes, I understand. And in terms of protecting ourselves, what are some of the things you do to protect yourself that the average person out there could do?
I don't have any of this technology in my house.
No Nest and,
Right.
Siri and all that, Alexa.
Right.
Get rid of all of that, right?
Get rid of all of that, yes. And of course, I'm not going to be liked for saying that because everyone loves their convenience. But if you want your privacy, you need to get rid of your convenience.
And then what else?
Power your phones off. just detach from technology for a little while.
What do you mean? Like every day?
Every day, absolutely.
How much do you detach from technology every day?
Unfortunately, I read a whole lot and I have to keep up to date with everything. So I have to use my phone quite often, or I'm attached to a screen. But I do take breaks where I put everything away.
And what about people who say, look, I mean, we've already integrated technology into every single part of our lives. We can't even survive without it at this point. I mean, you can't tell the time because nobody's got a watch anymore. We rely on communicating. We look things up all the time. And this technology is coming whether we like it or not.
Exactly.
So how do you what's the answer to that then? If you say, okay, the technology's coming whether we like it or not, what's the point then of detaching yourself for an hour or two every day? What do you gain? It's like bricks in the Grand Canyon.
You get a break from having your central nervous system overstimulated.
Well, do we even know what this technology is really doing to our brains? Have there been any kind of real studies or long-term studies?
No. It's just being implemented, thrown out there, saying, oh, let's use this. We don't know what's going to happen. No, it does affect our central nervous system, though.
Wow. How?
It changes how we react to situations and how we react with other individuals.
In what way?
Well, like you see right now, you go into a restaurant, sometimes you'll see everyone looking down at their phones.
Mm-hmm. All the time.
No one's really communicating in person or have those interpersonal relationships anymore. So that's how it's changing, and it's getting us used to it. And then before we know it, it's just like a new way of life to us.
And what about, like, you've seen those things where somebody films you on your phone and you see this flashing light, where I understand that it's sending sort of lasers shooting at you that we can't see with the normal human eye. Is that
correct?
That's real?
Basically rewiring our brains.
Can you explain that a little bit?
It's basically changing our thought processes and how we respond to certain situations and how we respond to the environment around us.
And changing it how?
That we don't know. It can be controlled and manipulated easily.
Wow. You make me want to throw all my technology into the ocean or burn it in the microwave and never see it again.
That's probably a good idea, but unfortunately we can't do that. So this is where we're at. Like I said, we're trying to figure out the best protections around this, because whenever we go quantum, this changes our reality as we know it.
So
and
what does that
brain-computer
mean?
interfaces will be going into the quantum realm. That's actually where the scope was written from, at a natural state.
Okay, so what does that even mean when we go quantum?
Currently, we're in like a hybrid state. So whenever the quantum computers come out fully, no one really knows, but from what the research we've seen, the quantum computers act at a subatomic level.
Yeah.
Which means that they can intuitively react with our central nervous system just by us being in the room with one.
And so what does that mean? Like putting thoughts in your head?
Absolutely. And reading your thoughts. That's where we say it, you lose your free will.
Well, because how do you know whether that becomes the gray area, right? Where you don't know if it's your free will, or did you think it because somebody put that thought in your head and you think it's your free will, but it's not really?
Exactly. We wouldn't know. Everything could be changed and we wouldn't know it. We would just be going along with whatever is being put in our thoughts.
Okay, but how far away are we from that, do you think? 5
to 10 years. It all depends on when quantum's going to roll out. And it is happening currently, but at a lower level.
In where? In what way?
The 6G will push it out completely, but just basically manipulation via our phones currently to date and our technology.
So what is the difference between 5G and 6G?
6G has quantum aspects to it, which again act at the subatomic level. So that's how they'll be able to intuitively react with us.
what do you say to people, who think this is all conspiracy and the stuff of fiction, and that it's just, and that it's crazy. It's good. It's like, it's scaremongering, that there's a lot of other things to it. Like, for example, the human brain is very sophisticated. You're not just going to be able to implement this at scale across the world, that these are sort of doomsday scenarios that spread fear and panic, and that while these things are, they're not outside the realm of possibility, there's a lot still working against them.
They are, but they're here already, basically, and they're going to come out even more. And each generation, you see, like our children now, they love their technology unless we take it away from them. And especially like the 20, 30-year-olds, they're really big into technology. So it's just a new way of life. We've been conditioned over time to go with this.
But what are the obstacles to this, right? I mean, because like, how do you power all of this? For example, that's not a small thing. And how do you scale all of this? Because as I understand it, the US has worked on scale, but it has kept patents very, private, and sort of not wanted to give those patents away so that technology can't be stolen and so on, and replicated and so on. But it is way ahead in terms of scale. The Chinese, of course, are pushing ahead in areas that we hold, that sort of that we don't go necessarily. And so they've made, progress in certain aspects of this, but ultimately we really don't have the ability to power these things globally. And we don't have the ability to implement these things on scale. And that even if you can chip your dog, for example, but that's not the same. That might be trackable technology, but that's not technology that can read your brain.
Actually, we've kind of over time been turned into human batteries via our food supplies and our vaccines. So the technology's basically been built into us to a point.
How? I mean, what do you mean by turn into human batteries? How?
Nanotechnology.
So what is that? You're through your food supply, and what does that mean?
Through your food supply.
So
I would say GMO food supply. It's very hard to find a clean food source anymore. Our foods are just out of control. We don't really know what we're eating unless we grow it ourselves. Then how do you know where the seeds actually came from?
Yeah. Well, if they don't regenerate, they're GMO.
Right.
Okay. So through our food supply and through what else? Our vaccines.
Vaccines from the research that I've read, that COVID was a test run for us, and some of the injections contain nanoparticles. These are just things that I've read. I don't know this for a fact, but.
So they're really turning us into human batteries to power this technology ourselves, right?
Correct. But we're already an energy source to begin with. So I find it kind of hard to believe that nanotechnology could live within us via our food supply or a vaccine, because it should, we're human, our bodies expel,
these things, yes.
Things that shouldn't be there. So that part I'm not quite sure on, but that's just the background knowledge that I have so far, how it's been working.
So what is the world that people who are trying not to restrict this, what is the world that you think that they envisage?
I would have to say a world where people have no free will and their thoughts are controlled, and everyone's, I guess, being good little girls and boys, right?
Yes. So, I mean, but if this is all, machine and computer and robotics, right? Even quantum computers, what happens to them if you turn off the power?
That's a good question.
I mean, don't they just die?
You would think, yes.
I mean, because, when you have all these sort of doomsday scenarios, for the world where AI is going to take over and so on, but can't you just cut the cord? I mean, just
you could,
unplug
yes,
it.
but no one's doing that though. AI hallucinates a lot, and AI's accelerated a lot of this. That's why it's changing every day, and everything's been sped up a lot because of what AI is feeding us.
But like when people create this sort of doomsday scenario that the machines will be smarter than us and harder to kill and, and all the rest of it. But at the end of the day, how you defeat the machines is you cut off the power, right?
Right. But who's going to really cut off the power? Do you see all the nuclear power plants that I believe Microsoft put in a patent?
Mm-hmm.
They're building their own nuclear power plants to power their data centers. It's going on across the board as far as the energy sector goes.
But just in terms of, for people out there who think that the machines are indefeatable, they can be defeated.
I would say so, absolutely. If you shut the power off, of course.
But
then we lose power to everything. So that's the whole.
That's the problem.
Dilemma. Yeah.
It's kind of like when they say the dark web, that you can't shut down the dark web. I don't understand why you can't shut down the dark web because I'm not a computer expert. But to me, if you've got children being sold and raped and tortured on the dark web and same kind of things with animals and, people across the board, why would you allow that to exist? Why would you allow that to live on servers? Why would you allow that data to move and to be stored and to be shared? And people tell me, well, you can't shut down the dark web. Well, why not? Why can't you shut it down?
I don't believe that they want to shut it down. If you wanted to shut it down, you could shut it down.
But then it's the same argument about the second and third order effects, is that if you shut down the dark web, then what's going to happen?
It shouldn't affect much of anything other than we don't have the dark web anymore.
Right. But then the other argument is that it can just pop up somewhere else, and that as fast as you shut it down, it's just going to keep being reborn somewhere else. Is that fair?
That is fair. Yes, we can't control what others do, so.
But we don't even try. We don't even try to shut down the dark web. I don't get it. I mean, evil literally proliferates on the dark web. If I started to describe what exists on there, I would be dropped from every platform in existence because nobody wants to admit to that reality.
That I can't tell you. I don't control that part. But yes, it could be blocked.
Because if you now have this kind of interface that you're talking about, well, people from the dark web could control your brain potentially, right?
Absolutely.
So that should be a concern. Why isn't that in the standards?
We're currently working on them. It could be it's a 3-year process, and then it goes out. We work in 3-year stints, so it could go for 9 years.
Wow. These things,
and it's only been out since 2022. So
the standards and all of that is a difficult, sort of lengthy, expensive, bureaucratic process that you have to fund yourself.
Yes.
But there's billions of dollars going into AI and brain-computer interfaces and so on.
Right. And I currently am self-funded for this because I have no sponsorship. I lost my sponsorship because my sponsor lost their funding. So I've been doing this because if I don't do it, there's no one else to do it. I've been doing it pro bono since last June.
That's nuts.
It is. I've had to work 2 jobs and do this, so it's not fun. But if I step away, there has been no one else to take over.
That's also
for the
nuts.
United States.
Yeah, that's just incredible. And
it's very shocking.
It really is shocking because you're talking about something that affects almost every aspect of human behavior, right?
Yes.
I mean, this is our freedom of speech, our freedom of thought, every freedom that we have. This is our entire liberty. This is our sovereignty and autonomy as human beings. This is all of it.
Yes. Which is why I don't step away, which is why I've lost my voice, staying up all night long, being in these meetings.
So what do you see, though, as the current obstacles to this technology being rolled out? What is really the things that are holding this back?
Well, currently I see an issue with the Bureau of Industry Standards and Security, which is basically a branch of the Department of Commerce. Mm-hmm. They put out a statement saying that no U.S. entities to work with China. I think that's being misinterpreted because at this level, we do have to work with China. I think that may be why none of the agencies are involved or are U.S. corporations, but that needs to be revisited so it's clear we have to be involved in these standards. We cannot walk away. And I operate completely legally. So I've had no pushback as far as legalities go. So if that's the case, why isn't Google, Microsoft, you name it, the large corporations that are actually making these devices involved?
Would it help to end Section 230 protection and, the other protections that are built into the industry? I mean, it seems like they don't care about antitrust legislation. They've built monopolies. I mean, what if you actually enforced the law?
Well, that would be completely different if that's not being enforced. It's so complicated, no one really understands it.
But the average person can get their head around, like if you take protection from, vaccine injury away from the pharmaceutical companies, their entire business model changes and they lose their immunity from hurting people with the vaccines that they put out, and they have to pay for it and be liable for it. That shifts the entire industry. So wouldn't it be the same thing here? You take away the Section 230 protections and you have these companies that are directly involved in proliferating this technology and surveilling, all of us and storing our data and selling our data and so on and so on. You take away their protections, make them liable. Wouldn't that change everything?
Oh, absolutely.
So that's something that individual people at home, like if you're sitting at home and, half of this sounds like Greek to you, but this is something that's very attainable, right? I mean, we can all lobby our congressmen and our senators and so on. We can all fight for to strip technology companies of Section 230 protections. We can fight for a digital Bill of Rights. What else can we do?
Disconnect. Make people aware of what's going on, because people don't understand what's going on. And usually whenever I start talking about this, eyes glaze over and they just don't.
Yeah, I can see that because it's either terrifying or totally, it's like Mandarin off of this, It's hard to understand.
Right.
Okay, what about our data? What if shouldn't we not just earn money from our data, but shouldn't we own our own data? We don't even own our own image in the digital world.
No, everything's free. And absolutely, we should own our own images. We should own everything. It's our bodies. It shouldn't be. Obviously, we get permissions. Whenever we accept these applications, we're giving permission.
Because we don't have a choice. If you don't give permission, you can't use the technology. And it's, you can say over and over again, okay, well, I don't mind if I don't use this. And then I don't mind if I don't use that. And then, at a certain point, you can't function.
Exactly. So they basically forced us into this where it's hard to say no. Otherwise, we can't get anything done.
So everybody knows that your data is valuable, but how much is it really worth?
Oh, it's priceless.
Has there ever been anything in history that compares?
No.
And why is that?
Well, this is a new technology that's coming out and it's out. So, and it's the first to ever that we know of that interacts with our central nervous system.
But in terms of the data, I'm just, I think people realize that their data is important, but, it's just like, it's little things like, how well do you sleep? How many hours do you sleep?
That's what I mean by our central nervous system. This is our actual bodies. This is our individual selves.
This is everything about us matters, right?
Absolutely.
And why? Because they're creating a human terrain map.
Yes.
And what does that give them?
It gives them total control over us as individuals.
Why? Because they can influence not just our feelings, not just our desires, but our behavior.
Yes.
So who is currently using computer brain interface technology right now?
Brain-computer interfaces?
Yeah.
There are multiple corporations using this currently. Amazon is using this currently.
How? How do they use it?
DARPA has this technology. Amazon is using this to monitor their employees, their performance.
And monitor them how? Well, like, what is it about their performance that they're looking for?
If they got enough sleep, their individual selves, how they're performing, and how they can assist them in performing better and basically being human robots.
So, I was having a very interesting conversation with somebody earlier about, as I was trying to prepare for this interview. And one of the things that they said to me is, if you could try, like AI, they said, imagine if AI is you trying to teach a machine how to think like a human, like with all the nuances and everything else that the human brain has,
That's
right?
training the AI. Yes, we have to train the AI. It just doesn't come up and know what to do.
Right. So that's almost like sort of a Frankenstein thing, right? Trying to create something that to replicate a very sophisticated organ, like the human brain itself, because it can factor in so many different things at the same time. Everything from, emotions to decision making to what's right in front of you, the bigger picture, historical picture. Like the human brain is just such a complex organ. They said, or would it be better for you to just buy a human and make them a slave? Like that. Because I was saying, brain computer interface versus AI. Which one would you choose? Which one is more realistic? Which one is easier to implement? Which one is easier to operate? Which one is easier to use at scale? And so some of the arguments sort of against AI are that, yeah, sure, AI is scary, but that the human brain is so sophisticated and so complex in many ways that trying to replicate that is a lot harder than taking a human and controlling them, really enslaving them.
Well, not really, because Australia created the brain in the box. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but they recreated the human brain inside a box. So that's feeding AI also, and that's giving more information as to how brain-computer interfaces can operate.
But what does that mean, they created a brain in a box? I mean, can you really create the human brain, or can you just try? How successful is that? Because the human brain is able to process human emotion. And if you just have a brain in a box, you don't have the whole picture.
Well, we do have cloning. So if you have cloning, you can recreate the human brain I believe they're using fetuses to do this. And actual human tissue was done to do that. Brain tissue.
Where was that done? I know there was reports that China claimed to have successfully cloned a human, but I mean, we have no way to vet those claims, right? Or do we?
Actually, no, we don't. But I do know that the brain in the box exists in Australia. So if Australia created a brain in a box that can think like a human, and that's where they use the fMRI machines, all the other technology that we have available to see if it's functioning correctly or not. If you take the data sets and compare that to an actual human sitting here, you can validate whether or not it's actually working.
Yeah, although every human brain, people function so differently. People make such different choices. It's like them saying that they've got a human brain in a box. I just don't know that I mean, how do we know how effective that is? I mean, they can say they've created a brain in a box, but is it really a complete brain? I mean, or does it just have brain function?
It probably has brain function, but we all have certain regions of our brain that operate our bodies. So that's easily detected via an fMRI machine. So if you take the data sets and compare it to an actual human or humans, you get a clear picture of what is actually going on. That's how we test these devices to see if they actually work, the fMRI machines.
What about the spiritual component to this? I mean, does that exist for you?
I'm very religious. So that's why I'm big on the ethics, security, and the privacy. It is a complete violation of human rights and ethics, in my view.
Yes. But I wonder, I mean, the human brain is connected to many parts of us, right? I mean, there's the cerebral part, there's the sort of the intellect, there's the rational part, there's the emotional part, there's the spiritual part, and there's the soul.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, can a machine really replicate all of that? I mean, part of me just doesn't believe that that's ultimately possible.
No, not our souls. Obviously, our souls are our souls, individual souls.
Yeah.
As far as the technology goes, though, I just want to say keep in mind each they're different cultures, and some cultures really have no religion in them. So they don't understand that what they're doing is against religions because they don't have the religion. To them, it's just science. They're just seeing if this will work and implementing this and going along with it because to them, it's going to help their societies.
So which cultures would those be?
Any culture that does not have God or a higher being involved in it.
You mean like China, for example? I mean, there is some of it there, but the CCP, communism, Marxism has tried unsuccessfully in some ways, but has tried to eradicate God.
Correct. Their culture is different than ours. They think differently.
Right. So they're
So
not.
it's really not that they're trying to do anything wrong. It's just that's in their culture. Their culture is different.
They're not constrained by the same, say, standards or conscience, really? I mean,
conscience, right.
It's interesting. So, you know, I that's why I just, when you say brain in a box, I hear you, and I'm sure there's some part of your brain. I mean, they can grow anything these days, but I'm sure there's some part of your brain that can exist in the box. And I understand that the reactions can be tested, but I don't know. I feel like I'm powered by God, and there's ultimately nothing they can really do to me.
I do as well. But technically, at a quantum level, it can be done because it's subatomic, unfortunately. And it's not something that you would realize would be done.
Yeah.
And we're really not quite sure. I believe it could affect like 80% of the population, world population. And for some reason, we're not quite sure why 20% may not be affected. That's the unknown part there.
Oh, well, is that true that 20% may not be affected?
Correct.
Where does that come from?
If you look at the data sets on how this could populate, there'll be something in the number of 20% of the population will not be affected by any of this. And we're not quite sure what those barriers are of protection.
That's God.
Exactly. I agree with you. So.
That's my unscientific analysis. Because I just know that, I mean, it's not that we're, you know, I consider myself immune. I mean, that would be so egotistical. You know, of course, none of us are immune to influence and manipulation and all the rest of it. But I think if you've given your soul, you know, to that higher power, and that's who you answer to, it just, it lifts the veil. To you, and
that is who I answer to, and I am a firm believer in God. So that could be why, fingers crossed, I'm not affected by this.
And have you ever heard, you know, some of the people that I have talked to have hinted at the fact that even with AI models, that even without those inputs, there has been evidence that AI organizes along godly principles.
I did read about that recently. I'm not quite sure. I just know it hallucinates, and I don't really like anything to do with AI. It works good from a security platform standpoint. If you need to train the AI to filter out potential breaches, that's perfect. That's where it needs to stay. But as far as outside of that, it needs to be done with. We don't need that anymore.
But we're moving sort of headlong. We're being pushed. It feels to me like we're being pushed, because I don't want to go there, but we are just moving at speed towards this AI economy where, you know, if you have a small business, for example, how are you going to be able to run your business when you're competing against the economies of scale and efficiencies that AI brings, right? So it completely changes the business model. And if you're having to pay human beings to do things that AI can do, you're not even going to be competitive.
Right. It changes reality as we know it. It changes everything.
But I feel like that's selling your soul to the devil when you give in to this technology.
I agree. A lot of people don't see it that way.
No, they say, well, God creates everything, so God created AI. What do you think of that?
I don't think so.
What do you mean?
That's a human.
You mean because
human factor in that?
Because AI is created by humans and the inputs are human?
Yes.
So what happens to responsibility and liability and culpability in the digital age? Because what I see is, when you're talking to a machine, like even with, say, take Tesla, if a driverless car is driven into a wall, who's responsible for that?
I would have to say Tesla would be. They didn't put the proper protections in place.
But how do
Which this has happened where someone's car did take over and she was driven into a pond and she drowned.
I remember that. That was Mitch McConnell's. Isn't that his sister-in-law?
His sister-in-law, I believe, yes.
Yes, the Chinese woman. Why do you bring that up?
As soon as you said Tesla, that's what I thought of.
Yeah.
So that's very frightening. And I prefer not to buy any new cars that have that technology in it, and I will never own a Tesla either. Anything that can take over on me, I don't want it. So that's me personally.
And it's not just Tesla. I mean, that the same applies to all driverless cars and driverless technology, correct, right?
Now they're coming out with the driverless semi-trucks. That is very dangerous.
Because they can be hacked.
Absolutely. And then these could be turned into complete weapons whenever, the size.
Yeah, I mean, look at the damage in terrorist attacks. Look at the damage that comes when a person drives their car into a crowd. I mean, it's an absolutely devastating weapon.
Yes. So whenever you take a full semi truck with a trailer and you have no idea what's loaded into it, and it gets breached and taken over by, say, an adversary or, just a person that wants to do nefarious things and harm to others, you have basically a weapon of mass destruction.
Well, and they always tell you, we can protect against that. And that's what cybersecurity is for. And that's what encryption is for, and so on and so on. But what I've learned from computer experts over the years is that cybersecurity is just a moving target. It's constantly evolving encryption, and that there is no real security, right? Even if you have an encrypted app, all of that information can be stored. They work on the encryption, and then they can break the encryption and go back in time. So anything can be hacked.
Exactly. It is a moving target that we're constantly having to protect, and it's basically almost impossible to protect. And once we do get it figured out, it gets broken.
It gets broken. And is it true that anything can be hacked?
Yes.
And so when they say things like, the new administration just talked about this technology that they're implementing for healthcare, where, they call it healthcare monitoring. I call that healthcare surveillance and tracking. But they say you can opt out if you want to, but you can't really opt out, right? Because all you're doing when you opt out is they're collecting your data whether you like it or not. And all you're doing is saying you don't have permission to use it, but you have no idea if they're using it or not.
Right. There is no opting out of anything, basically, when it comes to technology.
It's just a lie.
Right.
But that doesn't mean you shouldn't opt out, because essentially what you're doing is you're not giving them permission to use it.
Correct.
So you're forcing them to break the law, essentially, if they use it.
Correct.
Well, okay, so it's a pretty bleak picture that we're painting for people. I mean, what would you say to people out there, not to give them hope, because I always think that hope is a personal thing for people to find on their own, but certainly to give them steps that people can take, which make them not feel powerless.
Stay aware. Just be aware of your surroundings. Be aware of the technology you're bringing into your home, your wearable devices, your phones. And speak out. Just say, I want to preserve my rights as a human. I don't want to be controlled, or I don't want my thoughts going into these technologies. They do have a great deal of benefit for those that have medical issues. That's where they should stay. But of course, with technology, nothing comes out without going out into mainstream where it's no longer medical.
Yes.
So if we're going to use these technologies, we definitely need to make sure that there's security involved. And we need to look at them from an ethical standpoint and privacy to preserve our rights as humans.
And to remember that everything has a price.
Yes.
Well, Brandy, thank you so much for joining us. I know this has been a long and lonely fight for you in many ways. Hopefully, when hopefully when this goes out, when people see it, maybe you'll get some people out there in the community, other people in the technology world, people in the cybersecurity world. Hopefully they will be paying attention, and this will resonate. And where can people find you if they want to reach out?
I'm on LinkedIn.
That's Reid Hoffman, the psychopath,
listed.
Reid Hoffman. He kicked me off LinkedIn a long time ago. I know he's not there anymore, but that if people are not on LinkedIn, where else can they find you?
This would be at Insights. I'm the chair of the Brain-Computer Interfaces Committee. So if you go to www.insights.org and look up Brain-Computer Interfaces, my name is there. So I can be reached via email.
Okay, that'd be Brandy Smith. And is it Insights spelt like normally, as if you have insight?
No. It's INCITS.org.
INCITS.org. Okay, so go to INCITS.org. Look for Brandy Smith, everybody. Don't let her be in this fight alone. You heard her. Be aware of your surroundings. Be careful about the technology that you use. Be aware that even the most mundane things in your life, all of these are building blocks. These are little pieces of the puzzle that allow them to create a digital twin of you, that allow them to create a human terrain map. And every little bit of this that you're giving up, your data, is literally the most valuable resource on the planet. There's nothing they want more. They have built economic models that are making them richer than ever, where we are the product. They're feeding off us and every little thing that we do. And that in itself we're kind of slaves to the machine now. All these social media sites, we create all the content for them. And if we're lucky, they give you a tiny fraction of what they're earning out of you. That's, none of this makes any sense from a human point of view. We need to stand up for ourselves. We need to be aware. We need to make informed decisions, and we need to speak up. I don't normally talk like that on this show, but I am very worried about this. So, Brandy, thank you so much for joining us. Like, share, subscribe, everybody. Please get as many people as you can. Reach out to Brandy Smith. She is in this fight doing a lot of work on her own, and I'm sure there's a lot of people out there who can support you, Brandy. Thank you so much. We will stay in touch, and I know you'll be back.
Thank you.
And thanks for
Bye-bye.
going rogue.